Hey everybody, it's Off the Highway again, and today I am with Noel Castellanos. He has a great new book called Where the Cross Meets the Streets: What Happens to the Neighborhood When God is at the Center. Noel, what I'd love to hear you chat about for a minute is just what is it that our society and even the Christian church, what is it that we're missing about the Latino story along in all that we're thinking about?
Well, first of all, I appreciate, Tony, you saying my name with that Spanish accent, Noel Castellanos, right?
Yeah.
One of the stories that I start with in my book is I talk about entering kindergarten, my first day of class. The nun in the parochial school, when I started, she changed my name.
No.
And instead of Noel Castellanos, it was Noel Castellanos. All right. And so she Americanized my name so she could pronounce it better. But the kind of the tragedy is that that is the name that I really lived with until I graduated from high school. And so everybody, would call me Noel Castellanos. And it wasn't until I went away to college that I said, you know what, I'm not going to stay that. I want to kind of reclaim my name. And I think that, there's been a change in many people's understanding and sensitivity to that kind of reality. But I think that's one of the things that I wish more non-Latino or Anglo-Americans in our country were sensitized to, is that when we set up the standard. Now, I understand that in our country, the reality is that English is kind of the official standard language, but when we exclude the appreciation for everybody's cultural background, where they came from, I think we're robbing ourselves and our nation, and I think even a little bit of the dignity that people need to be able to see themselves as men and women created in the image of God. Uh, I'm Mexican American, grew up right along the U.S. Mexico border in the U.S. My parents were born in the U.S., so we've been here a long time. But my first language was Spanish, and began to go into ESL classes and all that. But today we're facing the reality that the changing demographics of America makes a lot of people nervous. Somebody wrote a book called Hispanic Panic that talks about, everybody wondering where are all these Mexicans coming from,
Right.
Latinos, and what we find is that 50 million Latinos in our nation today.
Right.
In the next 40 years, they project there'll be 132 million in our country. The majority of those will be here legally. Okay,
Right.
so the question is, how do we, as the church, as society, really embrace and accommodate and become friends with, take advantage of this incredible mission opportunity to love people in the name of Christ. And that's one of the goals I have in my book, is to just tell a story of how God worked in my life, and how, through my own experience, have been able to be committed to staying rooted in the Latino community, to be an agent of change. But I also see a great responsibility to help others understand the reality of what our folks are going through. And
Yeah.
maybe, Tony, to end here, one of the most disheartening stories that we're seeing unfold in our nation today is the story of 11 million undocumented men and women that are trapped in a bad immigration system.
Yes.
Not all of them are Latino, but many are. And what we find is that instead of rising to the occasion to say, we've got to figure out how to come alongside these strangers that Jesus talks about in Scripture,
Yes.
and love them, and try to find a way to advocate to change laws that are very antiquated and don't work anymore, related to the need of our economy for unskilled labor and people coming into the country to find work that oftentimes other Americans will not do. Instead, we demonize these individuals, and yet they're our neighbors, they're in our churches, They are cleaning our hotel rooms, serving you at restaurants, and mowing lawns if you have one in California. It's not a big deal so much in the cold Chicago, but I just I really long for the church to see the Latino community and our brothers and sisters from the South as men and women created in God's image that have so much to contribute to the health of the church in the years to come.
Yeah, and it's more than just a mission over there. It's more than an us them issue. I mean, today there are more brown babies born in America than white babies, and the reality is we're moving to a point that our neighbors are increasingly going to be those of us who try and hide in the white culture. We need to live in reality, and our reality is quickly changing, and Jesus is inviting us to change with that.
Yeah, they say if what do you call somebody who speaks two languages, bilingual,
Right.
and what do you call somebody who speaks one? And it's American, and I think that that's got to change, and we probably ought to learn Chinese while we're at it.
Good call.
So,
Good call.
yeah.
Everybody, that's Noel. His new book, Where the Cross Meets the Streets. Check it out. Thank you for sharing that story. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Tony.
Thanks, sir.